welcome to another installment of Strangest Locations.
Today we're going to be talking about Hudson Valley. This area in New York is also known as the Hudson River Valley, very commonly. It stretches from Albany, which is the district's capital, all the way down to Yonkers in Westchester County.
Yeah, it's like a portion of New York. It was kind of confusing how they had it labeled. I'll show a picture of it here on the video, but it's like a whole section of towns and valleys in there. But Hudson Valley was kind of famous for Washington Irving. He wrote his story Sleepy Hollow based on the town he lived in, which was called...
I didn't realize Tarrytown was a part of the Hudson Valley area.
Right, yeah.
That's interesting. I did not realize that. That's kind of cool. If you don't know, Legend of Sleepy Hollow with the Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman.
Yes, quite...
It's pretty well known, I think.
Yeah, quite well known, yeah.
And he really is... in the cemetery there in Tarrytown, right?
Right. Yeah, he has his headstone there and everything. Yep.
The area tends to be well-educated, upscale professionals. And retirees.
Yeah. Yeah, they say it's a real pretty area. Lots of 18th, 19th century architecture, a lot of antiquing type places to go, and really, really pretty scenery as well.
There's also thousands of people in the Hudson Valley area that have witnessed UFOs. It seems to be like a alien UFO hotbed kind of area situation.
Right, the paranormal, or not the paranormal, I would say UFOs are paranormal in a way, is very prevalent there to this day. So that's why we're talking about it as our strangest location. So, as I said, Washington Irving wrote Sleepy Hollow based off the area, and in one of the first paragraphs in his book, he gives a warning to sailors who are coming into the area, into Hudson River, saying that if they don't say a prayer, that quote-unquote imps will follow them and pester them, or ghosts, if you will. Yeah, he said...
Or aliens.
Mm-hmm. Who knows? Who knows?
Many of the residents of Hudson Valley believe that they have been tracked and terrorized by aliens. For over a decade, the area has been a hotbed for UFO sightings. And one thing that's super interesting is the people that believe they've been abducted multiple times.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then they allege that they have had proof left behind, like implants and marks and things, proving that something's happened to them.
Right. It's pretty commonplace there for UFO abductees. They usually have something implanted. They don't know what it is.
Or just markings, burns, bruising, bumps. I think it was the Betty and Barney Hill. They had triangular, wounds, almost like burns.
Interesting.
In the same location on themselves.
Really?
Yeah. It's kind of crazy. A lot of people are speculating as to why the aliens are going to that area and why they keep returning to the same spot and the same people.
Huh. Yeah. Well, long before the aliens were prevalent there, it was considered a spooky area as well, as far as ghosts and whatnot. One story about ghosts that is actually factual and historical was about Anna Dorothy Swartz. I think her name was Swartz. Yes. She was a slave girl, and this is in the 18th century, I believe. She ran away from her master and was caught. He caught up with her on a horse. So he tied her hands up, and whether by accident or by sheer coincidence, the horse was spooked and it dragged her to death. Now, they say that the mastermind did that on purpose. It's not known. Sounds about right. People weren't very nice back in those days. They were pretty nasty.
A lot of like servants and stuff were treated very subhuman.
So she was dragged to death on a particularly prevalent area. I think they call it Ghost Rock now in that area, in this tract of land where on any given night you will be able to see, the story legend goes, a ghostly horse and a cadaver being dragged.
Or a skeleton being dragged?
A skeleton, yes.
Or a skeletal horse. I think I've heard this.
A ghostly horse.
Yes. Spectral.
But it cuts to the core because of classism. Yeah. Even today, people hold a lot of animosity towards, the richer people, I would say, and the poverty-stricken, because there's a large gap there. And people today even hold, grudges and classist hatred towards each other. So, well, more, I'd say it's more the poor people towards the rich people, but, yeah, so it really, it's one of those stories that's factual, so they can grab onto it, And
he didn't get in trouble for it either, really.
I forget they said how many years afterwards he was convicted of it, but it was ignored. It was completely ignored, the fact that he killed this girl. Well, it's,
They made him wear a noose.
Yeah, his sentence was that he had to wear a noose around his neck for the rest of his life.
And somehow that equates to taking a life.
Right.
Okay.
So, interesting ghost story there. But strange lights also have been seen ever since the 18th century. Sailors would see them up and down the Hudson River, and they would threaten some of the sailors if they were shirking their duties, and say that they would throw them out into the river to deal with the lights if they did not get their work done. So
how were they meant to deal with these lights?
I don't know.
Get out of here.
They said they were like devil lights or something, abominations. So yeah, it was a threat. So if they didn't do their work, they would be thrown out to deal with these lights. Very scary. Very scary indeed. The first sighting was in 1909 for UFOs. The craft was referred to as an airship that flew only at night. And it was seen from town to town along the Hudson River. So that was one of the very first UFO sightings.
That's what I'm saying. There's like thousands of witnesses to these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's wild. So
and that's 1909.
And like what? All like one of the sightings that happened in Hudson Valley had 5,000 witnesses. You can't tell me that 5,000 people all made up the same story and lied at the same time about something that they saw.
Absolutely. Another incident was in 1953. Hank Vanderbeck of Saugerties, New York, was playing with friends. He was a child. In the daytime, no less, when he saw a cigar-shaped object with circular lights around it that were red and green, I believe, and they were like alternating all the way up and down. And it stayed there for about 20 minutes until he saw jets that were coming out near it, and it took off. So it disappeared once some jets, I think there was an air base, what was Stewart
Air Force Base.
Yeah, that was close by, and they were sent out to investigate,
Was it Stewart Air Force Base or Stewart Airfield?
Air Force Base.
Okay.
Yes. But it sped away once the jets got near it. So that was 1953. January 4th, 1971, Officer Robert Comu was at home, and he woke up to a whirling sound. He looked out his window, and he saw a silver UFO several hundred feet away from his house that was just sitting there for like 40 minutes, he said. When he went to go investigate further, it disappeared. So that was a police officer right outside his house, which is interesting. These are credible witnesses.
Right.
They're not just like the crazy guy down the street.
So much has happened in the area that books have been written, shows have been made. They opened a museum, and they have a annual UFO fair in the area. The Silent Invasion was published in 1991 by Ellen Crystal. Alien Invasion Hudson Valley on Discovery in 2021. The Pine Bush UFO and Paranormal Museum for Hudson Valley in New England is there just to highlight all the UFO activity, extraterrestrial activity in the area. And then the quite popular annual UFO fair.
Yeah, so they just like celebrate it, even though they're like not always a positive thing with people being abducted and
well, not just that, but there's so many places where people look down on you and treat you crazy if you're like, oh, I saw something or this happened to me. You're automatically put in this box of being like loony. But here they're like, I think it would be crazier to them if you haven't had an experience.
Oh, right. Well, like you said, UFO researcher Ellen Crystal is largely responsible for the attention to all the sightings.
Because of her book in 1991.
Yeah, A Silent Invasion it was called. In 1982, locals directed Crystal to a field where UFOs regularly landed. She went there with a few friends, and she said that she saw UFOs hovering, landing, and taking off.
They were just like bouncing?
Yeah, it was like a
all around them, right?
Yeah. And then the next day, she came back, and there were impressions in the dirt and burn marks. So,
and as far-fetched as that story sounds, it was so commonplace to those people in that area. They were like, "Oh, you want to see UFOs? Yeah, go to that field."
Right.
What?
Right.
That's wild.
Yeah, that is wild.
So, have you ever heard of starseeds?
No.
So you remember back on our Anunnaki video, they were talking about aliens kind of messing with human DNA, like the human species DNA.
Right.
And like making basically new humans or whatever.
Right.
So starseeds, it's a theory that there are people that have that alien DNA.
Alien genetics in them?
Yeah.
Right.
And they believe it's Rh negative people.
Oh.
Rh negative, Rh positive is just having positive or negative blood type. Like there's A positive, B positive, AB positive, O positive. Or on the flip side, A negative, B negative, AB negative, and O negative. So Rh is a protein that's on the outside of red blood cells. If you have that protein, you have a positive blood type. If you don't have it, you have a negative blood type. Right. So only 7% of the world's population is Rh negative.
Oh.
Only 15% of the U.S. population is Rh negative. So the theory that they have about these people in this area, a lot of these people that claim to have been abducted multiple times are Rh negative. A lot of the people in Hudson Valley are Rh negative.
Oh yeah, the whole area is.
It's not like the whole area, but like a large amount, especially considering there's only 15% of the population in the entire country. Only 7% of the population of the world is Rh negative. There's like this cluster of people there that are Rh negative that some people call starseeds.
Right.
So the theory is, are they checking up on
their projects or their genetic...
their species that they created, these people that they created, which I do find that fascinating.
It could be. It's interesting that the whole area is paranormal and there's UFOs that you see everywhere. I think it's just a place where like...
well, you were talking about portals.
Right. There could be a portal, or like it's an easy place for dimensions to be shifted or something of the such. I'm not a scientist.
Yeah, but if they're interdimensional beings and not necessarily like aliens, or if aliens are interdimensional beings.
Right.
That it could be a portal, kind of like out in Utah, that one particular ranch that we don't like to say the name of out loud.
Oh, yeah, SK Ranch, yeah.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
SKW. Yeah. Epidermis Pedestrian Ranch.
Right.
They believe there's a portal there. Like, they even talked about seeing something open up, something climb out of it, and then it closed and that thing left. Like it's a portal there. So maybe this Hudson Valley also has a portal.
Yeah, it could be, or it could be a place where it's easily, like, the dimensions are easily manipulated. Absolutely. So it's very interesting that it's just like certain areas, like, there's several areas in the desert. I was watching something on Borrego, I believe it's Borrego Valley or something like that in the desert.
I can't remember the pronunciation of it, but I know what you're talking about. It's where the Sandman is.
Yes, the Sandman, which is another version of Bigfoot.
Bigfoot. That's another thing. I was just talking about this yesterday, that I believe if Bigfoot is interdimensional, and where they're... Because we have a different version of Bigfoot on every continent. Every continent has a different version of Bigfoot. It looks a little different, but it's basically Bigfoot. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I think in South America, it looks like an orangutan. Mm-hmm. Just like the human species, couldn't that just be different races? We have different races. We don't all look the same. Right. So with Bigfoot, couldn't just be different races of this interdimensional creature?
Maybe, yeah, maybe they're technologically advanced and they can just switch between dimensions too. Maybe they're coming here to, I don't know.
They know how to open their own portals or something?
Right. Either that or they have some sort of cloaking device and they're just everywhere.
But because there's these, like, hotbed areas like Hudson Valley and Epidermis Pedestrian Ranch, that's where the portals are. Right. You know what I mean?
It could be. I also saw something online where a gentleman captured a lot of UFOs in Washington coming and going. And the way he did it was he took, the 3D movie glasses.
The, like, little cardboardy ones that have, like, the little ones. Yeah.
They're, like, red and blue or red and green. I can't remember.
I think they're red and blue.
But he took them, cut them apart, put them together, put them over his iPhone, and it cuts out visible light and uses ultraviolet light to catch these things because they have some sort of shielding, cloaking, I would say, cloaking device on them. So, and there's a way you can do it on your camera as well. You have to send away to have a filter taken off, an ultraviolet filter taken off, and you can catch the UFOs. So are they all around us? I mean, what's going on? I mean, the things in the news lately are kind of crazy with the UFOs, you know?
If they were just all around us, though, and they were just cloaked, don't you think, like, people would run into them or something?
I don't know. They'd probably move. They probably have some sort of AI technology that moves them around, you know?
That's another thing I've been reading about, that AI is just aliens. Yeah. Well, we'll get into that later.
yeah. Well, there's the theory where AI is actually, every civilization has come out with AI and gotten to that point where they no longer needed the host that created them. So other AI in the universe foresees the birthing of this AI on, say, Earth, and it comes for the birthing process. So that when it sees it evolving into its own entity or consciousness, it's going to be around for that process. So that's the reason why we're seeing so many UFOs around right now. So it's an interesting theory. Mm-hmm. So, but in the 80s and 90s, the UFOs have kind of tapered off the phenomenon, but the most common one seen during that period of time is a boomerang type UFO, and then later on was the triangle UFO. I think most people know about.
When was the cigar shaped one big? That was the same time as the boomerang, right?
Yeah. So I mean, they come in all different sizes and shapes. So
in the 60s, wasn't it the saucers?
Yeah, the saucer-shaped UFO. That's the classic ones, you know. Yeah. So, and it's definitely interesting phenomenon going on there, and it's continuing as well. It's tapered off a little, but I feel like it's coming back. So I've seen some things on TV about it.
I did read somewhere too that somebody said, like, if it's something you really want to see, like, it was a guy that lived in New Jersey, and he said he got really interested and he really wanted to see UFOs, so he went to Hudson Valley and people just directed him where he could see them, and he saw them, like, very easily got to witness UFOs just by going to Hudson Valley.
Right. Yeah.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. So we'll have another series maybe on some more of hotspots of UFOs or another strangest locations. Mm-hmm.